Well, hello. So, first of all, apologies if you tuned in last night for my promised video. Michael and Dave have D&D games here in the shop sometimes, and they had already booked the classroom for yesterday evening, so postponed today. We're going to make a t-shirt on the Overlocker tonight by cutting up a perfectly good t-shirt. This is a really popular class in the shop. It's a great skill builder, and I thought I would do it today because it's a really good way to learn how to make a t-shirt with all the extra foibles without the extra drama of having to buy the fabric and get the pattern and cut all that up. So I think that the best way to learn how to make a t-shirt is to grab a couple of kids' t-shirts, cut them up, and then stitch them back together. So we'll circle back around to what we're going to do there. But first of all, let's talk about what you'll need tonight. I'm doing it on the Overlocker. I think that the Overlocker is probably the best way for me to teach this tonight, and I like doing Overlocker stuff, so I think I might do a little bit more regularly, but I won't commit to anything right now without checking what's going on in the shop first. Tonight you will also need a couple of small kid shirts, kids t-shirts, preferably with rib necking just to get us started, and not a raglan sleeve, so a set-in shoulder sleeve like so. Get a couple of the same one if you can. One, if you make a mistake, that's no dramas. And two, the second one's going to be a bit of a pattern for the first one. So, as I think I said in the video the other night, you can pick these up from Kmart for a couple of bucks. But if you want your money to go to someone more deserving, op shops are filled with secondhand kid stuff. And there's also a secondhand kid shop around the corner. I think it's called the Rusty Zip. So, either way, it's going to cost you a couple of bucks each. Check. You're also going to need, and this is important and often forgotten, you will need something called cotton tape. You've probably seen this lying around Mum's sewing box, in your sewing stuff, and not known exactly its purpose. I'm going to talk to you about why you need that today. You are also going to need, a quick unpick, and you need a good quick unpick. And anybody who owns a Clover quick unpick will immediately tell you, yes, they're the best quick unpick in the world. I have a few different ones, as I've always said, different horses for different courses, but when it comes to just good old-fashioned hard jacket unpicking, a Clover quick unpick is the way to go. You'll also need a sharp pair of scissors. Oh, someone asked me about these last video. These are duckbill scissors. They're technically for appliques. They're about $24.50 a pack, but I actually find them very sharp cutting scissors, and I use them for lots of stuff. So sharp scissors for tonight's project, and either a seam measuring gauge or one of these cute little measuring gauges. Cool. All right, now I'm going to slow it down a little bit. This is going to take about an hour, so if you think you can sit down and watch the whole thing, then fab. If you come back and watch it later, you won't hurt my feelings, but I really wanted to slow down and just focus on technique with this tonight. Alrighty, now a couple of videos ago, someone asked me in the comments about the wide table that I was using on the Overlocker, and I apologise, I didn't answer. Quite often I don't see those until like 2 in the morning, and I'm afraid to answer at 2 in the morning in case it notifies you and you get woken up. But the answer to that is it's this little number here. If you have a Janome Mylock Overlocker, there's a really good chance this table will fit. It's an extension table that gives you a lovely big flat surface to work on, and it retails for about 95 bucks, I think. So very handy to have, and good on your Mother's Day list if you haven't got one already. All right, let's get started. So there is going to be a little bit of unpicking for this one, so I thought I would just take a minute and show you how to unpick an overlocked seam. First of all, did I say first of all already? I'm going to stop saying it. Next, let's have a look at the inside of the shirt that we're working with. Almost all clothes that you buy are overlocked, over the edge. T-shirts, stretch fabrics especially. Now we're actually going to cut most of this off. We're going to come along and just cut off those seams and make the shirt a size smaller. But because I'm doing a kid's shirt and the ribbing is very skinny, I decided to unpick that. But don't sweat it. I'm not going to make you sit through watching me unpick it. I prepared one earlier, but I'm going to show you how to unpick. So I'm going to try and get some good camera work here. Beautiful. All right, so when you look at your overlock stitch, this is the wrong side and this is the right side. I mean, really, I think it's just because it looks better, but that's typically how we think about overlock stitch. Now, most people, when they unpick an overlocker, they go straight into these loops here and unpick them for the first time because that seems the easiest route, but we don't want to do that. We want to unpick these little stitches just here. So these are the needle stitches. So these guys here are formed by the loopers. That's your upper looper, that's your lower looper, and these guys here and here, they're formed by the needles, and that's what we're going to unpick. So we're just going to slide our unpicker in between the two and just give it a little push and repeat and repeat, and you'll find that that just comes away uber easy. If you are tempted to unpick the other way, it is just a big old mess because you are only unpicking the loopers that round backwards and forwards between these straight stitches, and you haven't unpicked them yet. So again, going in here and just sliding in between those loops, getting the stitch over the quick unpick. You can see that okay? Because I'm looking through the camera. So, and that is it, unpick there. Cool. And then once you sort of get some traction and you can open up what you're unpicking, you can actually reveal those stitches. So what you're revealing there are those needle stitches, and you can go in and unpick them this way as well. But that's what you want to be unpicking. You want to unpick the needle stitch, not the looper stitch. Cool? All right, unpicking, check. All right, now zoom back out. Here is the shirt we're going to work on tonight. This is a Kmart Kids shirt. I think I will do a little bit more on repurposing, and of course feedback is great. Let me know if there's something particular you want me to cover. But I actually, because I'm a little bit of a strong girl, your typical cool t-shirts actually are a bit snug around the chest for me, so I actually will buy 2 shirts and piece them together to give me a cool shirt that's quite modern and fits me. And the other thing I love to do is buy grown-up shirts, so your surfer shirts or band shirts, and then cut them down and make kids shirts out of them. The advantage of repurposing is, one, obviously you feel like you're doing the good thing by the planet, but 2, I tend to find that these days when it comes to fabric, there's a few monopolies in Australia and we don't really have a lot of variety ourselves. So quite often I like to pick up garments from op shops or indeed clothes shops and use that fabric to then make something else. So today, let's cut this shirt up and use it as a skill builder, and keep that in mind for the fact that you could then do exactly what we're doing here and apply it to a grown-up shirt. Alrighty, so step 1, put that over there. Here is taking the neck off. We're going to unpick the ribbing from around the outside of the neck. Now, on a grown-up shirt and a bigger shirt, you can actually get away with cutting that off, but the kids' shirt, there's not a lot of room left over if we do that, so I have unpicked it. Now, unpicking at the front is just a matter of unpicking, but at the back, very often, there's an extra piece of casing that covers the back of the neck. I'll show you what I mean here. It's purely designed so that you don't see all this raw stitching when the shirt is laying flat and it's rubbing on the back of your neck. So that is just unpicked with everything else around the rib. So that's done. Check. I'm going to set these aside somewhere where I'm not going to lose it. And this little scrap, we don't need that again. We're just going to throw that in the bin. All right, so step 2. You might have to take the camera out a little bit. That's pretty cool. All right, so we're now going to turn the shirt inside out and take a look at it. One of the best ways to work out how anything is made is to turn it inside out and have a look. It's a really great way. It's reverse engineering it. It's sussing out how it's done. If we have a look at kids' sleeves, I want to show you this. If you have a look at your hem on the shirt, you see your hem is turned up and stitched all the way around. So they've stitched the side seams and then turn the hem up and stitch the hem. And in this case, it's got a special machine called a cover stitch machine that's dedicated to giving that nice hem stitch, but it's all one neat hem. And we tend to try and do this to sleeves on kids' shirts, and it's difficult because these sleeves are so tiny. If you have a look here, you'll notice that this side seam has been stitched up after the hem's been turned up. So the hem has been turned up, and then the side seam has been stitched closed, and then this last little bit, can you see that? See that there? That's just, well, we would just hand stitch that shut to stop it from flapping about. So straight away, that's a huge time saver kept in that we don't have to turn this little hem on a finished little sleeve. We're being given permission by the manufacturers of t-shirts to sew that side seam after the hem and then just neatly hand stitch it down. Cool? Alrighty, so that means that to get this shirt pulled apart, we're going to go ahead and cut, including just straight off this hem here. If you wanted to, you could unpick this hem as well so that you don't have to cut too much off, so that you keep the length. And to do that, to unpick this hem, it's actually quite easy. You simply put your quick unpick into this little loose wobbly bit here, and that's what holds everything together. That's the chain stitch that holds that hem together. And if we unpick that, and you know this because the kids come home from school after putting their shirts over their knees in parade and stuff, and they stretch all of that, and that then comes apart really, really easily. So unpicking that hem, if you wanted to do that, just run your quick unpick all the way around in that little zigzag on the inside of the hem. Once that's done, if you want to iron it, the fabric will sort of reset, it'll get all unstretched and it will go back to normal, and most of the holes will close up. But we're just going to cut it today because time is of the essence, so let's do it. So I'm going to snip that and snip that. So I've just cut those sides there and there so that it gives me a flat area or flat surface to continue cutting, and I'm cutting as close as I can get, looking through the camera, to those stitches on the side seam. Now, in reality, by doing this, we are taking about 1/4 of an inch off each side of the shirt. So that's 1/2 inch smaller we're making this shirt. So if we wanted to do this on something that we're going to wear again, we want to go one size bigger so that we have a little bit to spare to cut off. That's one side done, and then the other side. So I'm wearing my Terminator gloves again tonight. They're my preferred Overlocker gloves because I'm using my tough Overlocker machine. Through there, and then this is a little bit tricky because it's thicker, so just taking my time. Boom. All right, so we've cut the side seams. Now, if you're a person with an embroidery machine and you are trying to embroider on little stuff like this, I mean, there's a few ways you can do it, and there's different techniques and different stabilizers, but if you buy one size bigger, cut the sides off and then fold it open, check out how easy that is to put your machine embroidery on, and then just sew up the sides again. So for our purposes today, we've already got 2 pattern pieces now, or 2 pieces of our shirt, front and back. Now what we want to do is take these sleeves off, and again the same process. We're going to use our super sharp scissors and just get in there and cut off that seam, and we're working around a curve, so you're going to have to be a little bit more patient than me. Take your time and cut that nice and smooth. Can you see that? All the way round. Okay, don't rush, Penny. You got an hour. You got plenty of time. Round and around. This is much trickier than it looks not standing up. It's amazing how much better I cut standing up than sitting down. Okay, so there is one little shoulder piece. Oh, how cute is that? One sleeve rather, shoulder piece, Penny, you doofus. And then the other one. The other thing to note is that what you have just done, really, by cutting this up, is you are boiling this pattern down to its bare basic pattern pieces. So if you wanted a really simple t-shirt pattern, I mean, sure, come on in and I'll sell you a beautiful simplicity pattern. It's got all the instructions and everything in it for about, $19. But for a couple of bucks and a little bit of trial and error, this is a great way to get a pattern piece as well. So there is our sleeves. Now, what I should have noted, and I did get a marking pen, is I should have noted the front of each sleeve so that I can put that back together with the front the right way around. Cool? All right. So now we're left with this. Front, back. Groovy. All we're going to do is cut this shoulder off. Now you'll notice that your shoulder is overlocked, but then it's folded and stitched down. Really the best way to do this is just to cut either side of that stitching like so. And remembering, we're not making this particular one to fit. If we try to put this back on, it'd be half an inch smaller because we've cut off a 1/4 inch on each side. So if you want this to fit, cut a bigger pattern piece, or bigger t-shirt rather, so next size up. All right, and there we have our t-shirt pieces. Front, back, sleeve and sleeve. So you can see why this is quicker for a skill building exercise already, because you haven't had to lay any pattern pieces down. You've just gone ahead and made yourself a nice easy project to sew. I've snipped this fabric here, so I'm just going to take off this rough edge where I've cut it accidentally. There we go. All right, so here are our basic pieces to make a t-shirt out of. Iron this. I won't iron it now because the iron board's all over there, and last time I ran to do something I was unable to breathe, speak functionally for 10 minutes. So iron around here and it'll give you a smoother finish when you're done. Okay, so the process of making a t-shirt. If you had cut this shirt out from a pattern, you would end up with the same thing. A front piece, a back piece, and sleeves. And on the pattern piece, it will tell you that the sleeves has a front and a back. It's important to get that right, even on a t-shirt, because if you think about the human body, we curve in at the front of our shoulder and we curve over at the back of our shoulder. So in and over. So it's important that the front allows for that extra curve in and the back allows for that curve over. So make sure you mark on your pattern pieces with your marking pen and your fabric pieces, which is the front and which is the back. Cool? All right, if you are ready to go, I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and make a t-shirt. Now, cotton tape. Straight off the bat, this is one of those techniques that most people who make clothes in factories don't use this anymore. They just use clever stitching to do it. But for you sewing at home, this is an important step, and it's a step a lot of people forget. We want to put some of this cotton tape, which you can see here has no stretch in it at all. We want to put that in the shoulder seam of our shirt. So we're actually going to stitch a piece of this cotton tape in the shoulder seam while we're doing our construction, because this non-stretchiness of the cotton tape stops the weight of the shirt dragging and stretching your shoulder. The more shinier and looser and slippier your fabric, the more this, and also the larger your size, your pattern, the more this becomes an issue. So a good habit to get into is cotton tape into that shoulder seam so that it doesn't stretch once you wear it. If you don't have cotton tape and you're in a bit of a bind, just go to your cupboard, and I'm sure you've got a little bit of material stashed away somewhere, and cut off a little bit of your selvage, and that selvage fabric is tightly woven like this cotton tape and it will do the same job. Cool? All right, so we don't put the cotton tape in the middle. We incorporate it in the seam. So let's measure how much we need. About that much. So I'm going to snip it, or more accurately, as Christine would say, chop it. There and there. And set those aside. Now, we're going to use this shirt as a reference for what to do next, which is why it's great to have two shirts. If you have a look here, you'll notice that the back piece of the shirt is stitched to the front in such a way that it folds over to the back. So we have a nice neat finish that's almost cape-like. So that means the front piece and the back piece are stitched together, and then the back piece is folded towards the back so that we have a nice neat edge that disappears into our shoulder. So we're going to keep that as a reference, and you're going to see what I mean in a second. I don't know if I explained that very well. We'll give it another shot. Here is our 2 fabric pattern pieces, and we are going to put these together, starting from the neck and working our way down. So we want front facing up, back over the top, right sides together, and start pinning from the neck down, because the neck is the most crucial that we get that straight. If we have to trim it a bit at the end where the sleeves go, that's not really a drama. So good pins, you know, I'm always banging on about good pins. We want good pins, and because we're using our overlocker, we want to point to where we are sewing. And 3, we're not going to be slack about it. We're going to put 1 in the end here, 1 at the other end here. God damn it. There. And then we're going to just stretch it in the middle and make sure it's nice and even, and pop another pin in here. And then repeat on this side. And if you are watching this later on, you can fast forward this bit if you want. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to not just pin it this way, I'm going to flip it over, because that means I am sewing from the neck down on both sides. So when it comes to doing stuff on the overlocker, you want to sew things in the same direction. So if you're making a pair of pants, you want to sew both side seams of the leg of the pants from the top down. If you're sewing a sleeve, you want to sew both sides from the neck down. What that does is it stops your fabric from twisting up. So it's just a really good habit to get into for all sorts, stretch included, but for all sorts of sewing. So line up each end. Here. See, this pin's a ring in. I've picked up from somewhere. It's gross. All right. Those gross pins, they're like pens that don't work. If you have pins that are no good, you should just piff them, throw them right away. Alrighty. So here we have front, sewing from the neck down. Turn it over. We're now on the back, sewing from the neck down. So what's going to happen here is the back is going to fold over the front to give us a nice neat finish. So we're going to go back in here. And once you get more experience, you could do this all in one go, but we want to put this cotton tape into this seam as well. So we're just going to put the cotton tape in where we're pinning and just add another little pin just to hold it in place while we sew. And like I said, all in one go later, but for beginners, 2 hands for beginners. So there, that cotton tape is going to get caught in that seam allowance. Now here, we also want the cotton tape to be on the back. So we're going to lay it here like so, and then just flip over and pin it from the front. Alrighty. Alrighty. I think I should have worn my mermaid gloves today. These ones are a little bit hot. Alright, so we're going to sew this first seam. We're ready to go. Overlocker comes over. I have done a video before on differential feed. If you haven't, or if you aren't aware of differential feed is, maybe go back and watch that video for a more detailed description. But I'm going to just quickly explain to you what differential feed does. Differential feed compensates for fabric stretching out while you're sewing. We're doing stretchy fabric with all the hard work of the overlocker. It's going to stretch and give us a bit of a wobble. We want to counteract that. So typically when I do stretch fabric, most of the time, but you will have to test it, I set my differential feed, and for me it's this knob just here, so stitch length, differential feed. I set that to 1.5. The norm is typically 1. So differential feed to 1.5 is what I've done today. If you want to find out more about why, go and watch that other video. All right, let's do it. Try and find my foot control. As I said before, starting from the neck down, making sure our fabric's not too wrapped up or caught here. We're going to lift the foot. Now, foot up at the back, needles up. So you can put this under the needle and we're going to just slide that and just touch it just against the knife. And then foot goes down, and we can take this first pin out so that it doesn't get caught. And then being mindful of this second pin, I'm going to hold this with my finger and take that second pin out. Often with your overlocker, the pinning is just so you can get everything organized. So I'm sewing along, and that tape is getting caught in the seam with the rest of the shirt. So as you get to the end, just make sure nothing's caught up here, and then off we go. And around and chop it. And look at that. How nice and neat and tidy is that? And you can see no stretch on that seam. All right, let's flip it over and do the other one. Again, sewing from the neck down. I can't see my tape, so I just have faith in the fact that it's there. Lift up my foot and turn my flywheel towards me so those needles are up. Slide this underneath so it's just kissing the knife. Foot goes down. First pin comes out. Second pin, which is quite dangerously close to that knife, comes out. Holding it all together. And then off we go. And just cutting off a little bit of everything. And remember, this is a pancake, so if it doesn't work, the worst that is happening is you're out of pocket, you know, $5. So don't stress if it gets a little bit pear-shaped. You can fix it, or guess what? You can throw it away. No one knows. Alrighty, and there's that second one done. Cool. We're just going to trim the beginning and the ending. It's going to get caught in the next seam, so we don't have to worry about anything fraying out. So I'm going to trim that off there and just chuck it on the floor for the fairies to come and clean later. Do the same thing on this side. So I'm just going to even up to the fabric there and even up to the fabric here. And if our fabric was a little bit misaligned, if we had one a little bit bigger than the other, we would just trim it off till it was even. And once you start making bridal gowns and stuff, you can't do that, but for now, that's where we want to be. So, looking at what we've done, shoulder seams. What I'm talking about in reference to this shoulder here, we've got all the bulk on the back. So now when we fold this open, you'll see we have a neat front where no bulk is, and all the bulk is neatly folded over the back, which is what we want. So it looks the same as this shirt here that we're using for our template and our guide. Cool. Now, if you wanted to, you could go over to your sewing machine with a stretch needle, and you could use a lightning stitch, or indeed you could probably just use a straight stitch on here to top stitch this down just so it looks pretty, which is what they've done here. The reason you can use a straight stitch rather than a lightning stitch is because this doesn't stretch, so you don't have to worry about the stitch breaking. So if you wanted to make that look a little bit neater, you could go along on your sewing machine with a stretch needle and just top stitch it. Cool. We're not going to do that today. We're going to skip it. We're going to now go ahead and do the sleeves. So we just push that back a little bit. This is going to take some boring old pinning, and I apologize, but here is the front of my shirt. Now if you don't have an obvious marker on the front, mark it with your your fabric marker, put a pin in it or something so you don't get confused which is the front and which is the back. And then you are going to I actually think I've put that tape in on the wrong side. I have done. Should be on this side. Okay, so rewind, go all the way back to the start and put the tape in on the front piece, not the back piece, because then it will fold over neatly rather than wrinkly. So that's my bad. I apologize for that. But when you top stitch it, no one's going to know. If you don't tell anybody, I will have gotten away with it tonight. Okay, so here we go. Laying our piece out, and again ironing it will get rid of this curl. The more cotton you have in stretch fabric, the more it's going to curl while you try and do stuff with it. It is just the nature of it. It doesn't mind an iron, but not too hot of an iron, because then it will burn your cotton. All right, now just ignore these choppy chop bits. Like I said, I'm doing it through the camera, so it's a little bit tricky. These pattern pieces, I've got them marked with a front and a back. Here is my back for my pattern piece. So I am going to have wrong side up, because this is wrong side up, back to back, front, front to front. Cool? So I'm going to start by pinning one end of the sleeve to the end of my sleeve opening on the shirt. And then I'm going to go over here and pin this end here to this end here. So, and then, oh, I forgot. Oh, stupid penny. I got all thrown out by my tape mishap. What we're going to do here is going to find the halfway mark of this sleeve. Now, the halfway mark is probably going to be right in the center on a kid's sleeve, but maybe not so much on a grown-up sleeve. So just put a pin in there and mark the halfway mark on each of your sleeves. Done and done. Alrighty, and then this guy here, we're going to find the halfway mark of that opening. So fold the opening shut, end to end, and you'll notice that the halfway mark, if you step it out, isn't actually on the shoulder, it's just off it. And that's why we need to find it and put a pin in it. And this is going to help us stretch that sleeve around to fit in the opening. And do the same thing with the other one. So put the sleeves together. So, oh, this is very curly fabric. Now, when it comes to doing this for the first time, when it comes to stretch sewing for the first time, you know, I really can't stress enough, start with a cotton blend. It's a little bit fussy because it curls a lot, but it's much easier to sew for a beginner. Again, step that out all the way around, and there is our center point again. Now, I want to talk about something called pattern matching. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but here's a little example of it here. It's just a coincidence that this piece and this piece, when I pin it together, the stripe continues from the front to the back. Pattern matching is actually a pretty big thing for a lot of people. It's usually something you find on more expensive clothes that are bought from the supermarket. Very rarely care whether or not these line up. If you can't get them to line up, and I might do a whole nother thing on pattern matching I could talk about for an hour, but if you can't get it to line up your pattern pieces and they have to be off like that, then I suggest cut your pattern pieces so they end up like that and make it really, really off center. But pattern matching is all about laying out your pattern pieces in a certain place on your fabric so that when you stitch it up, your front and your back lines up with the pattern. Cool? All right, so let's go back to the sleeve. Okay, so we've marked our center, and this is our, we'll go back to where we were. This is our front here on the left. This is our back here on the right. This is our shirt piece. This is our back marked here. And this is our front. We are going to start by lining up our center to our center. Like so. Remember, pin by pointing to where you're going to sew on your overlocker. And then line up the end to end here. Like so. And again, I say this a lot, but the more experience you have with your overlocker, the less pins you're going to need to do this. But for starters, just pin and go slow. That's the key to success. And everyone will tell you, Mum will tell you, I always pin everything. I never pin anything. I'm so bad at cutting corners from pinning, and then I end up having to fix it because I cut a corner. So try lots of pins to start off. All right, so we're going to just stretch this body piece or sleeve piece as needs be so that they sort of all line up with each other and they have the same amount of stretch with each other, and then pop in a couple more pins. Remember, point to where you're sewing. Holy cow, it's like the biggest pin ever. Someone please send me a message at Mike's Sewing Machine Repairs and tell me to get the big pins out of my pin container, because I forget until the next video and then they get all cross because I've got my big pins in with my little pins. All right, there we go. And there is our sleeve pinned in and ready to go. Let's repeat on the other side. And remember, oh God, bash the thing. Remember, it's right sides down with the fabric, so right sides down with the sleeve. I've got my back marked on my sleeve. This is the back of my fabric. Let's find the pointy bit of the body piece. Line it up with the pointy bit of the sleeve. like I saw. Someone told me today that they're making a Super Mario Brothers movie. Line up this piece with this piece. And I think it's Chris Pratt, the dude from Galaxy Quest. Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be starring in it. So obviously we're all running out of ideas to make movies with. Alright, and this one here to here. Again, that's the pointy bit of the cutout on the body of the shirt, pointy bit of the sleeve, and then just stretch this out. Now, once you sort of get more into making with stretch material, there's a few more extra things you need to do to be careful of here and be mindful of. But the end mission always for me with these videos and with teaching people to sew is make something. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Get the satisfaction of seeing it finished, you know, and enjoy it. And then whatever gives you, trouble on that one, you'll know for the next one. So we're going to ignore some of those finer details right now and just make a thing. All right. Oops. Go, and that is done there. That pin was all caught up, so I just unpinned it again. Okay, so you can see here we're almost done. So that guy there, we're going to go ahead and stitch it, and I like to stitch it with the sleeve up so I can see what's going on. It doesn't really matter which way you go for your own personal preference, but we're going to be a little bit mindful for what's going on here as we go. We want the front to fold over to the back, so we're going to fold that up like so and then just put a pin in it. I really am kicking myself for putting that tape on the wrong way. Like that. And that's going to hold it down while we sew, and we're going to do the same on this guy here. And pop a pin in it to hold it flat. All right, let's do it. Let's overlock. Such a delicate thing. All righty. Now, again, remembering the pins are really all about holding it the right way while you set up, and then the overlocker foot will hold it while you sew. So we're just going to flatten out these ends because they will be where you have the most trouble. And we're going to lay those flat, lift up your foot, and then pop these under the foot, like so, up against the needles. So turn those needles, turn the flywheel towards you so those needles are up, and your fabric is just tucked under the needles. Drop the foot, out comes the pin. Oh, come on, pin. Here we go. All right, ready to sew. We're just going to take our time and make sure the bottom doesn't get caught up under here, and we don't want the bottom to stretch away so we end up only sewing through the top. So taking our time, pulling that bottom out as we go so we can always see a little bit of it, so we know we're always cutting a little bit off as we go. All right, and around we go. Now, overlockers like to go fast. That's what they're made for, but you can slow down for this sort of thing. Just don't slow down right in front of a big bump. If you've got a big bump coming that you're a bit nervous about, then don't slow down right in front of it. You know, give yourself a couple of feet to catch up. Or a couple of feet, a couple of centimeters to catch up. So just going around, take out that pin. Whoops, oh, nearly went in there, so I'd have to fish it all out, and you guys would have to go watch telly for 10 minutes while I do that. All right, so we're going to make sure that this tape is folded over in the direction that we pinned it. And don't sew over the pin. Make sure our bottom's not caught anywhere. Always cutting off a little bit. There we are. And then off we go and curve out the edges and straighten off. Whew. There is our first sleeve all set in and put back in. Aw, how cute is that? All right, let's do the second one. Let's not dilly-dally. We've got a neck and a side to do yet. All right. And foot goes down, needle comes out, sew forward a little bit, make sure that the underside is pulled out so I can see it, so I'm always cutting a little bit of that off. this pin out, and I have a little hiccup here, a little notch, so I'm just pulling that a little bit more to get this notch cut off, so don't judge me for that. And around we go. And I think also too, the pressure of knowing the fact that all of this cost you, $6 to learn with, there's no pressure, and I think that's one of the things we put on ourselves enormously when we sew, is this pressure to succeed on the first thing you do. You wouldn't put yourself under that much pressure for anything else. It's one of those things where you have to practice and get it wrong in order to know how to get it right. So don't sweat it. If this doesn't work, just cut it all off and do it again. Alrighty, last bit. And there it is there. Flatten it out. And there is our sleeves are now on our shirt. Oh. Alright, so now at this point here you would typically put the neck back on, but there is no point me doing a whole nother 20 minutes of this video on how to put the ribbing back in when I've already done a video on how to put the ribbing back in. So go back and watch that video there. This is your ribbing. You're going to put that back in by quartering it, marking your quarters on your shirt, line them up and stitching around. It is much easier to do it with your shirt open than closed, so that would be the next thing that you do. Some people like to do it before you put the sleeves on. I like to stitch the sleeve in place because it stops all of this from stretching while I'm mucking around doing the ribbing. So fast forward and put the rib in and then come back to the next step. Cool? All right, so ribbing's in. Whoosh. Would have rather done something more spectacular and magical with my camera so the ring was there, but you'll have to use your imagination. All right, let's do side seams next. Now, this has... Oh, I've just realized I've made a mistake. I have stitched... Oh, see? Should be paying more attention. Here is the front of the shirt. I have stitched it right side in rather than right side out. So we're just going to pretend you can't. If I never told you that with the camera, you wouldn't have seen that happen. But here we would have to unpick it or cut it off and do it again. I'm just going to ignore that and pretend that it's all cool. And I'm going to actually cut off this hem. I don't want this hem. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off. I could have unpicked it, but you guys don't want to sit there and wait for me to unpick it. I'm going to cut this hem off altogether. Like so. Chop it and do the same with the other side. We're going to focus on pattern matching now. We're going to see how successful we can be with pattern matching. Now, pattern matching isn't something you can just hope for and do. Like I said before, you have to pre-plan by laying out your pattern pieces on the fabric in a certain way so that when you do stitch them together, they all line up. But let's show you what you would do in theory. All right. I'm going to line up this shoulder, the armpit seams. So let's just underarms is probably a far more elegant way to say it than armpit sleeves. Okay, the armpit seams, Penny, you goose. All right, we're going to line up the underarm seam here. Now we've got a little bit of drama here because I'm doing it through the camera. We're a bit shy, but we don't care about that. We're going to get it pretty close and then just pin that. So pin, and when we pin it, we're going to pin it so that one faces down and one faces up. So I might, like so, can you see what I mean? This faces up, this faces down, so we have a thinner seam to sew over. And let's pin this side seam in place. I think when I do this next one, I might have to come up with something a little bit more than the camera because on a mount like this, because it is a bit hard for me to see. All right, so pattern matching. Because this is stretch fabric, we have a little bit of ease. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up that bit of the pattern and pop a pin in it. And then depending on how intricate, big, small your pattern repeat is, or your pattern that you're trying to match in your fabric, you would either do it every couple of pattern matches, every single pattern match. Here we're going to do it every single because it's quite an obvious chonky join, and it'll be really obvious if we get it wrong. So we're going to go ahead and, like I said, we're so hard on ourselves because you buy it from a shop, the pattern match invariably doesn't match, and it doesn't match by very much. But again, we just forgive it. We say, okay, well, you know, so be it, and we don't think twice about it. But when we make it and we let ourselves down like that, we get really hard on ourselves, and that, you know, it's ridiculous. So if we compared our sewing standards to what, you know, millers can charge 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks for, then we give ourselves a bit of a break. All right, so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Down there, pattern match, pattern match, pattern match. I would like to say too, the other thing about making clothes versus buying clothes, one, kids stuff, it seems hard to get kids stuff other than what is on trend. So whatever is popular is, you know, I guess it's true for all of us, but kids stuff particularly, you know, it's very hard to get kids stuff to suit the personality of all the kids you know in your life. Oh, see how this is a little bit uneven here? See that? I'm just going to chop it. And that is the joy of stretch sewing. Chop it. But the other thing about making clothes for yourself rather than buying them, of course, is the fit. So you can get the fit right, but also too, not everyone is wearing it. It's just you. So you haven't got the same thing on that 10 other people in the bank also have on. There. Right. Also makes you a little bit angry too that clothes shops these days, you know when you go into a ladies dress shop and everything that's full price, you know that if you wait 6 minutes, it's all going to be marked down to 20 bucks. And it's like, well, it's obviously only worth 20 bucks. So why not just charge 20 bucks for it every day? And then, you know, we can just go shopping without getting ripped off all the time. All right. I think that's true for everything. If you're at a shop and the shop keeps having sales where everything's 30% off all the time, doesn't that just mean that they can afford to sell it at 30% off and it's not really a sale anymore? Anyway, I'm too cool to be so jaded, so I'm not going to be. Let's lighten the mood. All right, and that is our pattern matching done. See that? So our pattern is going to line up down the side. Pattern matching. So we're going to start sewing from the sleeves and work our way down. The main reason being the easiest thing to trim off and straighten at the end is the hem down here rather than the hem of the sleeve, so it's easier to get that right. And remembering this hem will already be made, we're just going to fold it over once we've done that side and seam and stitch it down. All right, so we're nearly there. Let's overlock again. How are we going for time? Oh, I'm doing good. All right. I wondered how an hour would be. Okay, so again, foot goes up, needles up so you can catch underneath, line everything up, pin to hold it together, foot goes down to hold it together, pin comes out, and making sure that nothing is caught up underneath, because what will happen at this point here is you are so excited about being near the end that you will accidentally fold your shirt underneath. This bit gets caught in the overlocker and your whole shirt is wrecked. So take the time to smooth it out, and if your seams are rolling into each other like that, just pull them open so you can trim a little bit off. And we're making sure we don't sew over this pin, just a few stitches to hold it together. Out comes the pin, and round we go. So I am just cutting off a fraction of that fabric, making sure that I don't go through the pins, stopping and taking them out. And that is one side done. Nice and neat. Awesome. And look at that pattern matching. If you're watching, Mum, you'd be proud of that pattern matching. That's pretty cool. All right, let's do it on the other side. Same thing again. Let's lift up that foot. Make sure everything's lined up and held together with that pin. Needles go up so you can get right under the needle. Foot goes down. Pin comes out. Most important, pin comes out. Little stitch to get things started. And then off we go again. And taking the pin out. See this little bit of curls give me trouble. I'm just holding that open if I can, then just trimming a little bit of it off. Out comes the pin. Out comes the pin. Just my finger, just holding that curl out of the way. And then to the end. And we are doners. All right. Let's have a look at that. Now imagine there was a really cool neckline in there to add to the coolness of that, but that's our shirt nearly sorted out. These seams here, you'll notice I'm not trimming them off to the very end. I'm leaving myself about 1/2 inch here and here. There's a couple of ways that you can resolve that so that it doesn't stick out. My favorite is, and I'm very sorry, but I haven't put it within arm's reach to get it, but my favorite thing to do is to get my crochet hook, little silver crochet hook, Just see if I can do it with these tweezers. And you want to slide your crochet hook into a few of the stitches and then grab this tail like so, and then pull it through like that. See how that gives us a nice smooth rounded off finish with no loose tails that'll hold on to themselves. Cool. So we're going to do that for both sides. Don't know if I can do it with these tweezers, but we'll give it a bash. In through there, hold the threads and pull them back through so they're neat and tidy and out of the way. Snip off the excess, and then obviously choice of thread color makes a difference here. If you do, probably do this in black typically, but here this little bit that is a little bit raw and exposed, you're just going to fold this down like that, and a couple little hand stitches. You can do a machine stitch here if you want. I typically hand stitch because it's quicker, and that will hold that down for us here. And now we're left with our hem. So hemming can't be done the way we traditionally do it on an overlocker. So at this point here, you would go over to your sewing machine and use your lightning stitch, or you would put in a twin stretch needle. And I've done stretch hemming before. I might just link up those two videos in the comments for both those things, that and the next, so you can check it out. And then you can stitch up a nice hem like so to finish off your shirt. I'm going to show you how to do it all in one on your overlocker, but you need to have a long hem to start off with because the end result is going to be this. So this is a hem that looks almost like an extra row of facing, and we're going to do that all in the overlocker in one go. You ready? All right, time to go. 10 minutes, perfect. Okay, so you will need either this little monkey here or this little guy here, and we're going to use this one today, and we're going to turn over a hem that is an inch. Let's see, kid stuff. Let's see, let's go. We're going to turn over an inch hem. Kid stuff, the hems are different to grown-up stuff, don't forget, so don't make it too big. But the biggest mistake people make with the hem is they make it too small, and it really affects the way the fabric falls. So we're going to go ahead and turn over our hem and measure out whatever I just said. What did I say? An inch, like so. So see the red marker here? Lined up with that line here, gives us an inch. At that point where the inch is, well, we might go an inch and a quarter. I've changed my mind looking at that. Inch and a quarter. All right, fold over again. Like so. And that is, oh God, it's so impressive. Look at that. It's an inch and a quarter. We're going to just mark on the inside here an inch and a quarter down, like so. And at the inch and a quarter mark, which is just here, we're going to get our sharp scissors and we are going to cut to the stitch but not past the stitch. So we're cutting, snip, the first row of stitching but not the main row. Sorry, so I guess it's technically the second row of stitching. We're going to leave the primary row of stitching. Does that sound better? And then that lets us flip one seam this way and the other seam that way, so we can fold it over and get less of a bump just here. Now, depending on what's going on this end of the shirt, see, seam is what we're going to do down here. So if you have a look here, you'll notice that doesn't really make a difference. There's nothing laying flat, so we can choose either left or right. So we're going to go right side up for the main seam and right side down for the excess, and then fold that over like so. And then give that a good old-fashioned pinning. Now, this pinning is temporary. We're going to come back and re-pin in a second. So don't overthink it. Just pin it and hold it in place at that measure. And let's flip over the other side and do the same thing. Fast forward if you want to. Doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle-doo. Find our mark. There. Chop it. There. Looks like right side up for the main seam. Right side down for the hem seam. And then fold that up and then pin it. And see how flat that is now? So we have a nice flat seam, which is really important for what we're doing next. But just handy, good practice anyway. That pin there. And then we're just going to carry on our 1 1/4 inch seam all the way around. So just mark it and just real casually pin it. Mark it. Yep. And then real casually pin it. As your shirts get bigger, particularly lady shirts, you will notice that your hem may not necessarily go straight across. Your hem may have a little bit of curve in it. Just follow that curvature. It's a whole nother thing talking about doing a curved hem. Down the track, guys, eventually we'll get there. There were more hours in the day. I'd do these videos all day, every day. All right, done. And 1/4 inch there. And 1/4 inch. Oh, sorry, 1 1/4 inch there. All right, so normal hem. And if you wanted to go and put that in your sewing machine now, you would sew along here. And if you're doing a cover stitch, it would do it. But we're going to take this one step further with our overlocker. Where we have done this pinning, we are now going to turn the fabric so that the right side of the hem folds back in on itself. So I'll do it slowly so you can see. We're going to do it like that. Cool. So I might go this way, that might make it easy for you to see. So we start off like that. We have our hem here. We're going to fold over this raw edge here, like so, so that it looks like that. Take out the pin and then re-pin it. And just repeat right around the outside. So fold it over itself and then pin it. It's another bad pin I picked up from somewhere. Let's throw that away. Fold it over on itself, and then we might pin it pointing to where we're going to sew, of course, Penny. That's a good habit to get into. So this one here, I need to fix it. So remember pinning by pointing to where we're sewing, otherwise we won't be able to take the pin out while we're overlocking because of the knives. So folding it over again, like so. Just taking my time to straighten up that seam so it's not that side seam lays nice and flat. And then, so you can see here, right side's up still. And then once that's done, go ahead and pin it. Fold it over and pin it. You're all very quiet tonight. You must be all concentrating very hard. And over and pin it. And with 3 minutes left on my promise of an hour, we are going to hem this baby and then we are done. Like so. So what we're going to do now is we're going to overlock over this edge here that we've folded. So can you see what's happened? We've folded that hem back down on itself and we now have almost like a double hem on that shirt. Cool? So that's it there. Fold it over, fold it up, hemmed, pointing to where we're sewing, and we have the original raw edge and an extra fold where we measured that 1 1/4 inch mark. Cool? All right, overlocker comes back. What I love this table for this sort of thing is that all the weight of the shirt is taken by the table. It doesn't drag off the overlocker. So if you overlock and you do a bit of dressmaking, then I super highly recommend this table. I think it's a bonus when you buy the 544 at the moment. All right, we're not going to start here because remember, no one sees particularly where we start on an overlocker. And if we start here on the side seam, which years of dressmaking has conditioned us to, we've got a big, huge, heavy, chonky bit to do. So we're going to start about here. So again, make sure the needles are up. Wiggle this under the needle here, like so. Just kissing against the knife. So against that knife right now is, see, it's a fold and that raw edge all in one go. Checking my differential feed is 1.5. I mentioned that at the start. And we are going to just sew around and against that knife. Just stopping and taking out that pin. And that pin's a rubbish one, so I'm going to throw that one away. And just making sure as we go that we are getting some of that fold in under that cutting area. Not that cutting area, in under that knife. Around we go. Okay, so we're talking about overlockers like to go fast, but they don't mind if they go slow, as long as when you get to a bump you have a little bit of run off. I'm not saying run like a crazy person, but don't stop here to get yourself organised. Stop in advance here, and then into the cut, and then round we go. Nearly done. Oh, almost right on time, which is amazing for me. And then, oh, sorry guys, I banged that camera a couple of times on that one. So here is our bump at the beginning that we stepped over. We're going to pull this out so it doesn't get all caught up. No, I chucked another one in, Hannah, just for, I'm going to try and do more. I'm going to try to do more videos on weeknights, so stay tuned. All right, here we go. And then we've just cut off. We're not cutting the stitches from before anymore. Once we've done a little bit of an overlap, just turn it sideways and then run it down, chop it. Now this bit here, you can use your tweezer method to pull this back in out of the way. I'm just going to cut off for the purposes of finishing today. And then if I now turn this out the right way, like so, check out that cute little hem. Zoom out, whoosh. So there you go. So you've got this cute little hem. Now you can see it's taken a lot of length off that shirt. I already cut the hem off anyway, but if you want to use cute little boy stuff on little girls, quite often boy stuff is too long for little girls' shirts. So this is a great way to make a little crop top. So you can put almost a self-facing band on there, and that's what it looks like on the inside, and that's what it looks like on the outside. So you can use this technique on hemming your shirt around the hem, and also if you want to do sleeves, it's a great way to do like a little mock facing on a sleeve as well. All right, so I think we will call that a day. Today is Tuesday, and I think I'm going to give next Tuesday a shot as well on the Overlocker. I'm going to try for 7 o'clock next Tuesday. I just double check Mikey hasn't got any games on that night, and I might do another repurposing, and I don't know what it'll be until next Tuesday. I might, I don't know, I won't commit. I'll see what I can find at the op shop, and I'm going to stick to do more overlocking stuff if you guys think that's a good idea. All right, thank you so much for watching. I noticed a few of you stuck it out for the whole video, so thank you very much. I'll put in the comments a link to my other video on how to do your neck, and my other video on how to do a hem on stretch material. Okay, gang, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later. Bye.